What do you, what?
I got Rumpke to open like this.
Yeah.
The budgets. Some mine is. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's not
Great.
Luckily, he ended up
It was
getting
another
dye out. That's the proper way because there actually is on the surface, there can be back pressure that will make it appear to stand still. It seemed to stand still. Longer time of fight.
Okay, Mayor.
But when they put the dye in, that dye hung.
We can't find the cameras not coming on.
So, you know, it wasn't just.
Start video.
You're a kid.
Yeah.
Keep it
I
over
think
there.
that's realistically getting it opened up.
Um,
And I think they stopped out.
I didn't mean you to trade it.
Yeah.
I actually had one of those seats. I know you showed up one day and I also I did.
Physically backing up just south of Ward Road. There's definitely a block.
when you update, I do too.
I did mine earlier today.
What do you want? You want the whole bailiwick?
No, like just at least for safety.
I think it's pretty substantial.
It's definitely not on our property,
Yeah.
just for safety.
For safety, everyone service.
Yes.
Because they have both a camper and a tent back there now.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Who's me?
So you know that blue paint stuff that they put on.
Supportive and friendly.
Well, I bought some of that. And I had to put on some stumps. And I have all these walnut trees that came up between. And we've asked you to professional advice here for free.
I do this all day long.
So I have all these walnut trees that are cut up in the middle of bushes, like my snowball bush and all my lilac bushes. And so now my snowball bush doesn't look very good. And is that, will that kill, if I put it on the stump, will that kill the snowball bush too?
Yes, it will.
There's paint that you put on the tree.
Okay. I didn't hear it say that. I know, I didn't hear.
No, it's not
Is the volume down?
paint. He called it blue paint one time and I, this is blue, so I know it's the same stuff, but it's some sort of, it's really strong stuff. I think it's illegal in some states.
Say we don't even have
You know, so a homeowner has to pay $1,000 to prove.
But it says you're gonna have to manage it.
I have stumps.
Let me see if I can do that.
But you wouldn't want to put that.
Are
on
you gonna
the
rely
bush.
versus that home?
There, it's a little, okay. There, there's a little delay.
It's the same thing that's gonna happen with the lilac. Copper nails. And I bought
Copper
copper nails.
sulfate for that killing.
Okay.
I bought copper
Okay,
nails, so.
whenever you're ready.
Yep.
All right,
Right.
we'll call the Service Committee August 2022 to order at 6:03. Do a roll call.
Cosgray,
Present.
Foreman,
Present.
Schaffner.
President.
Also in attendance, we have the mayor, village administrator, fiscal officer. We've got Brian McCreary, Deb Schaffner. Yeah, sorry. Chuck Keller. Sorry, guys. But, so we just needed a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
I looked them over, everything looked in order to me. Foreman makes a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second. Shuffle seconds.
All in favor, say aye. The motion properly made by Rick and seconded to accept the meeting minutes of previous meeting. Move on to visitors. We got some here today. Okay. Introduce yourself and
Good evening. Does this work? Good evening. My name is Robert Landis. I'm here to give an update on the Ackers Ditch. We were fortunate enough to meet with Walnut Township on Friday. They opened up an access point just north of Holder Road. Through that effort, we were able to establish that there is a pretty major blockage somewhere north of Holder, running maybe 200 to 300 feet south of Holder. Because of water in the line and whatnot, and some silt in the line, we weren't able to get a camera down it at that point. So I think we're now at the point where we're working with Walnut Township to see how we move forward on that. Now, in regards to hopefully what you guys are looking at doing, I do want to point out that this is probably only one of many problems that Walnut Township's looking at. So what you guys are hopefully considering today, it would be a much bigger scope that would allow us to know what other problems are out there and need addressed.
When you say we're looking at, what are you referring to?
Hopefully there's a study that potentially could be done, an engineering study. Am I misunder?
Tabled at the last.
Yeah, to wait to hear back
Yeah.
from
Pending.
Warren
Yeah.
Township.
Yeah.
And that's what we're hearing right now. And I mean, we all know there's a 15-inch tile that runs through there. That tile was used as the stormwater solution for lots that the village created and a developer sold. And we didn't require that developer to improve it, update it, or install additional. So all of the land from 37 to Holder Road has two ways to get across Holder Road. One way down in a field east of town that doesn't involve us, and this one, which has clearly failed. And I don't think we need to have an engineer tell us that if a pipe's broken, maybe we should dig it up and fix it. And that's what's happened. The pipe is definitely broken. You can see the sinkholes where it's washed away. And it's the only storm drain line for that portion of our village. So it's our responsibility, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. It is our responsibility.
Let's hear, well, we got that on old business, so we can hear from the rest of the visitors.
And I would tie in
I got
to what
an update too.
Mr. Foreman is saying is there is part of the eastern side of the village's stormwater that is feeding directly into Ackers Ditch that I don't know that it was intended to at one time, and it definitely is now. And that might be causing some of the problems too, as far as overcapacity. Now, I still believe that there's still failures along the way that are a root of majority of the problem. And once we get those fixed, that maybe that 18-inch line is capable of the capacity that we're throwing at it. But like I said, Walnut Township is really only isolated on this one problem right there at Holder Road. They're not going beyond that as far as what they're helping with. So anything you guys are capable or willing to do beyond that, I would say we don't need to wait on Walnut Township necessarily, even though, what they're doing is going to be a help to the overall project. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good. What he said.
All right.
Yeah, we already had.
So, and we'll also address that with the old business too. Mayor's got updates. So we can move on to the goals, the 5-year plans for streets, and wastewater treatment, water plant.
And those, you've already had the streets, I shared the water, and we will have a new 5-year plan come out. We are just now starting to work on the budget which is something I'm going to talk about budget and projects tonight. So. Sue, would you like me to start with the departments report? All right. So on August 16th, the elevated water tower was fully cleaned on the inside. We had a little bit of a hiccup, but was able to maintain pressure. While it was low, we still were able to maintain it. But, and to get it back, we had a lack of a communications failure between the software and the tower. So that has been identified and fixed. We did ask the people who clean the inside of the tower if they could give us a bid for cleaning the outside of the tower. It's been about 5 years now, and it's starting to look a little ragged. And so they're supposed to supply us with a price to clean up the outside. By the way, what you see is not leakage. It's just normal stuff in the atmosphere, I guess the way to put it. The ground storage tank was also cleaned on the inside. So we got two pretty good cleanouts last week. I am pleased to announce that we received a $22,000 check from the Richard Roundhouse Fund of the Fairfield County Foundation for the Shea Pavilion at the pool. Without the kind of support that we are getting from our donors and from the Fairfield County Foundation, we would not be able to do the kind of improvements that we have slated for the pool. In fact, I think next week, set up an appointment to talk further about the next phase with Mr. Landis and some of my staff and he's not an architect, but is he?
3D rendering.
Yes, 3D rendering, which, so we have, one of the things that we had a rough time with was we didn't have instructions to put up the pavilion. And of course we did it, so it took a little longer, plus we were missing some of the parts. Not missing some, yeah, some of the parts, so. But the next phase will be a little more organized. The wastewater treatment plant. First of all, with all the rain we had last weekend, I'm proud to announce we did not have an overflow. So we're doing good. Both membranes 1, 2, and 3 are in auto. They have been cleaned. We're going to do a chlorine cleanse on membranes 1 and 3. And then 3 will get its first acid wash. All of them have been acid wash except number 3. So that'll be happening in a couple of weeks. Plant solids are right where he would like to see them going into the winter. As you know, the bugs slow down, things get a little congested. The last bag before field application is full. And once that's hauled in the fall, which is when we usually haul it and apply it to the field, then we'll have one more bag to fill before winter. We met with the mill earlier this month. They're going to start dredging, if not this week, next week. Put them on notification that we will be monitoring the solids on a daily basis. And at any time I start to see the numbers climb to an unreasonable level, they'll have to shut down their process. So we're going to monitor it very, very close. In fact, Brian Cogwood has sent them a list of things that they have to do during this period. So the communication going back and forth is really good. We are scheduled to have London Communications come in and finish the work at the water tower on the 29th. And then that is the work that we needed to have done because of the lightning strike. And then we'll be submitting all of that to the insurance company. AEP came in, took another look at the pole down on Basel where the stoplight is, and have decided that it's not worth saving, that they fear that if they bend it back, it's not going to be robust enough to hold up the street light. So they have put in a work order to install a new stoplight pole, and that would go on the northwest corner. And that will help us greatly over there to get those pulled back up, the lights that is being done. The corner project, we're working on moving that sanitary sewer lateral. And we have started gathering all of the materials requests that we're going to need, not the materials. We have to first put this request together, identify how much footage of pipe that we're going to need and all the parts that go with it. And then we submit it to ODOT, and then ODOT blesses it. And then If it stays under 50,000, I don't have to go out to bid. So hopefully it'll come in, it's going to be close to 50, but hopefully it'll come in under 50. Why is that important? If it goes out to bid, then like I explained before, ODOT says we have to take the lowest bid regardless if it's the best bid. And not always is the lowest bid the best bid. So hopefully we'll be able to select our contractor. The asbestos testing was completed on the white building across the street last week. Robert, have you heard anything? I haven't either. Once they get those results back, then we'll get a timeline as when they'll start tearing that building down. So tonight I ask, there's legislation to engage B3 services for the Granville Water Street OPWC project that we were awarded. I'd like to get this out to bid. If you remember, we had to bid the park project twice to get a bidder on it. So tonight it's on legislation to do that. I have told B3 that we wouldn't be passing it as an emergency. It can go through the 3 read rules. So on 3 readings. And so they're going to go ahead and start putting together a packet, even though they realize that we have a total of 3 reads on that ordinance. County informed me they're still waiting on from further instructions for the Washington water line. They gave out a lot of money, so they're having to meet with each entity individual to tell them how they'll have to move forward on that. So we need to hear from them. The CDBG grant, James says that he still has back from the state for that yet. So those 2 projects are kind of quasi at hold. Liberty and Maple new line will be put in the week of the 29th. To go along with I&I attended a kickoff meeting for the mitigation plan application cycle hosted by the Fairfield County EMA, which is a mandatory meeting that I have to attend if we want to get any sort of grants or apply for. Lo and behold, believe it or not, we have 3 proposed grants. The first one, proposals, the first one was done in 2003, and that's when they purchased the tornado warning siren. So they're saying that one's complete. However, in 2011, there was a mitigation flood hazards through the village of Baltimore. And this was an initiative to protect the wastewater treatment plant from floodwater damages. Now, I am not familiar with that. I have looked and I cannot find any documentation. So I reached out to John and said, do you have any documentation on this so I can read it? Because it's still open. So in other words, we have that project sitting there. So it's project number 1. Project number 2, they have identified as the year 2017, which, by the way, I would have been here. I don't remember doing this, and I asked her for documentation for this one, and she doesn't have that either. And it's improve the hydraulic opening and clear all streams of debris to reduce flooding. So I have a meeting with her tomorrow. We're going to sit down and go through these projects that are open. We're going to talk about what other projects can we qualify for or put in for. And and then I'll have more information at the next meeting. But I was surprised to see those projects. And I cannot find an ordinance. Usually when I do a project, you all approve an ordinance for the project. I did not find one for those. So, and that brings me to Holder Road. And Brian Coughlin knew that we're on hold with his agreement to have him do any work on that drainage study until after the township. Mayor, do you want to talk to that further?
Now it's more business or we can go.
Or do you want to?
Oh, we have left PDRC.
Yeah, we have what? We have BD. We have parks. Yeah, I have some new old business is Holder Road. We can do the new business if you want to do that. Okay, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, might as well do that.
Okay.
That's where I talked about, so it's on everybody's mind.
All right.
Oh, Terry can give Brian's update. I just wanted to. The village, the township has done their stuff. I just wanted real quick before we get into the discussion on it, because at the last council meeting, I had talked about doubling up for the potential grant opportunity that we want to run a stormwater line, run a sanitary sewer line at the same time, so we don't have to open bid twice and we can back those grants up. At the commissioners meeting upstairs, I was able to talk to the health commissioner. He said it would be no problem for them to come out and inspect all of the septic systems and leach beds and everything, all in that area that's getting flooded, to give us a report so that we can include that with the grant application. So we can talk about the potential, if any have failed, how many, or how long they have left to go, or if there would be a condition, so that we can include that in a grant application to help department the EPA for sanitary sewer at the same time as a water line, stormwater line. Right? So, but then Terry's got an email from Brian.
I'll just do some highlights and if anybody would like a copy of this, I can give you a copy. So Brian said that he realized that we hadn't engaged him, but he had already made appointments to meet with Fairfield County Farm Services and et cetera. So he went ahead and did it just to gather information so he could make sure that the scope of what we want is there. So he talked a little bit about wetlands, and he said some pocket wetlands have probably formed because it's been so long that the water has been laying there. So that means that we may have to restore, in order to restore those to cultivated land, the owners of those lands will have to get to make sure that they are not considered wetlands. And there is a definition that the FSA, the Farm Services Agency, goes by. So there's a form they'll have to fill out. And again, this is something that will have to be done because some of the pockets of wetlands have formed. It said that both the landowner and the farmer have to be a part of this process and cooperate in the process. So he's not sure. He did look it up to see if there was anything that was identified as a wetland currently. And he said he couldn't find anything, but that doesn't mean there's so much stuff to go through on the website. So that was one thing. He said he knows that Washington Township has already, Walnut Township has always exhausted their ARPA funds at Buckeye Lake. So he knows that they probably don't have any funding to help it out, and that'll come and be pertinent later in the report. He did talk to Steve Price, and Steve Price, yeah. No, he did not talk to him. Okay, so he doesn't know what why Mr. Price doesn't want us to, or wants anybody to look at their property, but it's important that we make sure that it's not damming up on his property, basically. So again, I can make a copy of this report. He's suggesting that we phase this project out to a planning phase, which will be a drainage study, a design phase, and a construction phase. And so Jonathan from Fairfield County Soil and Water had made the statement to Brian when he met with him that nobody really has any idea how many tiles and drains have been tied to the old mainline tile down through there through the years, and that those old lateral tiles would need to be connected to the main line tile system and replaced to make sure there are no new drainage areas. He does like the idea of a cammering unit running on camera through there and tracing the existing tile system to identify all the existing connections. He did talk about the septic systems a little bit. He said why they were there. He opened a couple of the distribution boxes for the septic systems. They had standing water in them because the curtain drains are not keeping the ground levels below the leach field. And presumably, he's saying all of these curtain drains have been tied into the drain tiles. And since the drain tiles do not function well, it's probably impacting the performance of the septic systems along there. He's talking about potential funding. He did, because I asked him, okay, so it's a project. Where am I going to get the money, or where are we going to get the money? And then he said the potential funding sources that he could identify would be county petition ditch assessments, Fairfield County ARPA funds, which I don't know how much is left of those. Our utility funds, ODOT maybe for some of the drainage under State Route 256, OPWC, and if you remember, I talked about OPWC before, and that's something that we need to talk about. He hasn't got a chance to sit and talk to ODOT yet, but he wants to put that on his list to do. He's saying that he sees his stakeholders as the following: the Village of Baltimore, Wyandotte Township, private property owners, ODOT District 5, Fairfield County Engineer, Fairfield County Soil and Water, Fairfield County Farm Services, which is a part of USDA, and the Fairfield County Health Department. So as you can see, there are a lot of stakeholders there. It's not a simple thing. So he reached out to Mr. Luster, who had a copy to obtain a copy of the 1902 mapping. Did you know about, did anybody see that, the 1902 or the 1930 map?
I think Walnut Township has a copy of it. Right
Okay,
now.
and I did talk to Terry Horn, and he was going to send me a copy. So,
Because I know Ron said he wanted to get back over there and get it back.
right. It's a pretty lengthy report for someone who is just trying to get everything together so they can decide how to move forward. He did ask Soil and Water if they could use a drone to go over the area to kind of map it, because they just got a second drone, and I believe they're going to do that. That's probably not going to cost us that much. That's about all he said in his report. Basically, there are some other things. It's a very long report. So the way I left it with him was, please don't do any more work, because council had put on a hold on doing the study. And so until I tell him to go forward, he probably is not going to be doing any more work. He may get the drone and fly it over, so we have like a nice drone map of it or whatever. But other than that, all of the things that need to be done. And so when I say this only because this isn't a problem that we're going to be able to solve in a year. It's going to take a while. If we're going to submit an OPWC project, that takes a while to put a project together, and we need an engineering study to do that. So I think it just, there's a whole lot to be done yet, and I look to the council for direction to where to go from here. Or service, sorry, not council. Everybody serious likes the council. So we just need some direction on where to go. But they are not doing any more work on their study as of our last meeting when you told them to stop. And we do have that money identified for the study out of the stormwater fund. The money is there, and we can appropriate it to for that study.
So if a major storm tile is clearly broken, do we need a study to just fix that and see what happens?
Is that the only problem out there, Mr. Foreman? Do you know?
I don't know for sure, but I can see a broken tile, and I'm saying, before we do a study, why don't we fix what's broken?
I guess my question becomes, is it ours?
It became ours when we allowed all those lots to be split off and developed without a different stormwater solution.
I guess it would be,
That was presented as where the curtain drains for all those septics were going to go to this tile underneath Packard Ditch. So if the Village of Baltimore didn't require that developer to do something else, then we basically took over responsibility for it.
I guess what I'm looking at is the legal side of it. If we don't have an easement for responsible for the maintenance for it. And if we're going to put a new one in, I know in the villages that I represent, in the cities that I represent, I would never sign off on putting in a drain tile on someone's private property with municipal resources without an easement and some sort of maintenance agreement. Otherwise, I'm improving a private person's property with public funds. And so if it's not, so our tile, it's a private tile, and it's a private fix, unless you do easements and appropriations and maintenance agreements and make that part of the municipality's stormwater system.
Which should have been required when it was prescribed as the drainage way for all of these additional lots. It didn't happen, but we can't.
Which gets back to Terry's point, though, if we're going to do it as a municipal stormwater system,
Which is what it is.
we want to get grants to be able to do it, which means we need a study.
So it looks like Mr. Landis had a point to make. Go ahead.
Just through speaking with most of the folks that the Akers Ditch physically resides on, I think most of those folks are willing to do an easement if that's something that's necessary. I can't speak for all of them, but majority of the ones I have talked to are definitely interested in that. And most of them are interested in a complete fix, whatever that is, because especially like with all of us, everybody's like, we want our problem to be fixed, which is obviously a part of the whole thing, but we want to make sure that happens. The reality to make that actually happen for everybody and everybody feel like they've got their problem fixed is the complete solution. But it's not that many people that the ditch resides on. So I'm guessing maybe 5 or 6, maybe.
Well, and I guess there's no guarantee that a municipal stormwater collection system follows ditch.
Correct.
It's the only path to the creek for everything west of Witherspoon and south of 256. So everything in that whole area has to go through that cut through on Old Road.
That's
And-
behind our houses, right?
Yes, and currently, even the property on the south side of Old Road, in a heavy rain,
Yes.
comes across Holder to the north.
Yes.
So it even picks up water from the north side of Old Road and goes towards this tile that has failed. And there's just no question that the tile's failed.
And this is the same tile one of Township's gonna fix.
They looked at their portion of it, beyond what they looked at, it is in the village. Everything that needs replaced is in the village. They looked at everything on Walnut, which is both sides of Holder Road. It immediately curves back into the village right there. And it really, for the most part, if the tile from the north side of Holder Road to the manhole behind the former Jim Reed property was replaced with new 15-inch tile, that probably would solve the whole problem. But we don't know. We're just fixing a broken tile. We're not saying it will for sure. We just can tell that that portion has failed and needs fixed. And before we spend $30,000 on a stormwater study, why don't we fix the broken tile?
That goes back to the point though, of why are we fixing a broken tile on this property and not Bob Hankinson's tile behind between me and Linfield last year? He dug it up by himself by hand. He didn't come to the village. and ask
Because
us.
he has a storm sewer. We don't have a storm sewer out there.
This
But we
was,
do- and that's kind of the point we're getting to is spending public funds to improve private land without making it part of a municipal water system means we need to have a study so that we can get a grant in easements to do all of that work on the process for it.
replacing that section of tile is a small project. We have money in the stormwater fund to do it.
And there's nothing that stops the landowner from doing it either.
Darla can't do it because she doesn't own the property either. If somebody dams up Walnut Creek on private property, we're gonna make them take that out, or we're gonna go take it out.
And aren't we as residents paying some stormwater fees every month?
And that's what I mentioned at the last meeting, that you do, and I've calculated it since 2013, that the homeowners down there have paid $8,160, and we haven't spent a lot down there. So I'm not saying it shouldn't be spent.
I
I'm
thought
just
you
saying,
did say that, excuse me, I thought you did say that, but.
no, I don't have a problem doing it. I have a problem doing it on private property where it's not part of a municipal system. If we're just fixing a tile, that is different than putting in a stormwater system.
Then stop charging me $3.
So,
If I'm paying for something to the village, and you're not willing to fix it, then why should I pay for it?
I am willing, I'm not saying we're not willing to fix it. I'm saying there's a difference between replacing a tile on someone's private land and putting in a municipal stormwater drainage system with appropriate easements and in locations. That's where I said, if it becomes part of the municipal stormwater system and that tile does, okay, if that's what the study says we need to do, that's fine, but we need easements and maintenance agreements. Otherwise, we're using public funds. We're using everybody else's money here to improve your private land, which we can't do legally. If it becomes part of an easement and part of the village's responsibility, then we can. And that's the distinction.
So Mike Lieber from Boulder Road, Baltimore. I hear what you're saying a little bit, but what he is saying is, if that fixes it, that's great. Then what I hear you saying is, there could be a bigger problem. As a village, we need to look at that. I have no problem with a study to look at that, but I think before you go looking at a bigger problem, let's see if we can solve the small problem, which might do it. And you've got funds for it. I paid in, he's paid in, we've all paid in.
But that goes back to the part that it's not part, it's a private tile on farmland right now. It is not part of our public responsibility. It is a private.
Then what is
tile.
my money going to? Why am I paying the money?
I understand exactly what you're saying, but I'm not sure that you understand our point.
No, I understand that I understand going on private property as a public entity is shaky from a financial standpoint. But here you've got residents that live in your village, paying taxes, supporting you all, and we're willing to sign that you can come in and fix it. Because we don't have the wherewithal to do that. I told you before, if I had to fix my property, I'd be happy to do that. I'm not sure Mr. Bilber would be happy about it, because I don't care what happens to his property. So I think as a group, we're trying to say, hey, village, help us fix this. You guys have the expertise to do that. We don't.
And what we want, at least what I want, is the study to be able to tell us what gives us the complete fix, as Robert called it. Fixing the tile might fix it, but I can't guarantee, and this is the same thing I asked Mr. Reed the last time, can you guarantee me replacing that tile fixes the problem in Brian's backyard? Because if it doesn't, then we're back to square one. And there's no guarantee that if replacing that tile fixes it for a couple of homes, but doesn't fix it for Brian's, doesn't mean that we might not have to pull out that new tile to do the complete system, which is why we want the study done.
And like Mr. Foreman stated earlier, there's been substantial growth on Holder Road since this ditch was installed. And would the study help actually establish that not only are there problems, but the ditch itself can't handle the capacity, especially if you have apron drains running into it?
I think part of the B3 study, if I'm not incorrect, is they were trying to study the entire area, Walnut Township, private land, municipal infrastructure to come up with the fix that is going to be certified by engineers to move the water to where we want it to go. And in order to get that, we got to do the study, then we got to get the grants, and then we got to bid it out, and then we got to put it on, a schedule for improvement, which that's a multi-year process at this point.
So we can install entirely new storm structure at Maple or Liberty with no study, no engineering, no nothing. It doesn't exist currently with none of that, but we can't go fix a broken tile that's been there 100 years.
Because we know what the problem is at Maple or Liberty, and it's part of the public stormwater system already. Yes. We don't know what the problem is out there. And it's private land, in village, out of village, all of those stakeholders. And we don't know what the problem is. Here, we own it and know what the problem is. So, yeah. It doesn't help the people out on Holder Road that we can do that, but that's just the reality of the situation at this point.
It is my belief that if we want this problem completely fixed for everyone, that we should have the study completed. I believe that if we have the study completed and the number of stakeholders that can sign on to it, I believe it would be a really good OPWC project.
The other thing you get with the study is if there are people that are holdouts
Mhm.
on it.
Mhm.
I can now take their, when I say I'm saying me and other villages, because I've done this. I can take the land by eminent domain to get the easement to fix it because it becomes a public works project. So if someone wants to hold out and doesn't want us on there, but we say, no, we got to go through here. We can go through there at that point.
So basically what you're telling the people on Holder Road, plain and simple, it's on private property and we're not gonna touch it. I mean, seriously,
At the
is that
mo-
what we're saying?
At the moment, we can't. At the moment, we can't.
But that was our mistake. We should have never allowed that tile to be referenced as the drainage for new property.
Do you have those drawings, Mr. Foreman? Are that project or something so I can look at that? I
don't.
cannot find anything.
This because it was done without proper documentation. Those lots didn't exist before they were created. They all had to have curtain drains. They all had to have, stormwater had to be dealt with in order to create all those lots. I've created lots in town before, and I had to address stormwater. I've done a couple projects in town. I always had to address stormwater. And out there, this was cited as the solution to the stormwater. And at that point, there should have been easements put in place or required before it could be used for people further down the road to drain their water through someone else's land. The village didn't do that. And that's a mistake,
The
but it's the
village is at
village's
fault.
mistake.
The village is at fault if you go all the way back to that, right?
Correct.
And
my
that, they
opinion,
should
but it's
be
just
held
my opinion.
responsible.
In Ohio, water is called a common enemy, so, but absent that, it's private land right now. Again, if the solution is we do stormwater all the way down, a line all the way down Holder Road and then pipe it all the way up 256 through fields so that we get stormwater, then that's what the solution is and we can get the easements and the necessary stuff to do it. But as long as it is a bunch of private property owners, some of whom are not cooperative, some of them who are not in the village, we run into the problem of we don't know what the fix is. We know this is contributing to it, but we don't know that that's the fix. Hence the study. So we A, know what the complete solution is. B, then have the ability to say that this is why we need this and that those uncooperative owners, we can force them to cooperate.
I believe between the residents in Walnut Township, we can get that small section resolved. That,
With no involvement from the village.
I don't have a choice.
as getting it, as fixing it,
No, I mean, as having the village do it. They're not going to go on private property.
Unless the easement is.
and I agree, and I think that's why the study is pertinent and
And that's
ultimately,
different than getting that fixed, though. You're talking about different.
correct. But like I said, I think between Walnut Township and the residents themselves, that's not a big fix. That now that we've isolated the problem down to a couple hundred feet, I mean, Mr. Foreman can probably tell me what that tile runs per foot. You're not talking a complete overhaul, which is what I think the villages, or at least the administration, is proposing, which ultimately would provide the ultimate solution for everybody.
I have a question. So you mentioned the study would look at not just the area and village, but in Walnut Township as well. So if something is identified, if more things that are identified as a problem in Walnut Township, are we going to pay for that then? Or how does that work?
Well, I think that's to be decided, but this is the way I look at that. If we have a study that flat out says, in Walnut Township, we have this issue. In the village, we have this issue. Then we approach the people that can help us, and that's the county commissioners. Right now, it's all of us going in there saying, well, we didn't do it right 20 years ago, and we want to do it right now. I think, I just believe it's the right way to do it, to do the study, and then to garner. And I believe that Soil and Water will get on board then. I believe that it could be a project that, if it's backed by the commissioners, it would be a lot better, because it is going to be across, you heard me say the stakeholders, numerous stakeholders. It's not just the township, it's not just the village, it's not just the private property owners.
Am I simplifying this too much and thinking that by fixing the tile, it could work, but it also could be a Band-Aid for a much greater situation? Because when was this tile initially put in place?
Well,
I've got several maps.
1907.
we have
So we're
maps.
talking over 100 years ago, so with that, you had a bunch of change anyways. So there's definitely not saying that putting a tile in there is going to be a fix because of all the development that's occurred out there.
Since 1907.
Right. So in my opinion, it's more responsible to do the study to more specifically target what the issues are. And then, but it definitely needs to be addressed. But I think to put a Band-Aid on it and then risk having to tear that up and go back onto that private property, I don't think that would be the best answer.
One thing I'll say about that, and I hear what you're saying. I'm not against a study, but this problem has been eating my land and my buildings away since 2008. So a Band-Aid today might save my property many, many years, because this is not going to be a 30-day study. I understand that, and you understand that. So a Band-Aid today helps my property a whole lot more than what should have been fixed years ago by whoever has not been addressed. And so for the last 12 years, 13 years, my property is being eaten away, my building is being eaten away, the floor of my building has been eaten away, and my mower is being eaten away, along with some other land that some other people know. So I'm just saying, a Band-Aid to me that I'm apparently paying some money into you all is not a bad idea.
So
I understand it's expense.
in your case.
Yeah.
it's
But
right now.
I would say you call a couple of property owners, they'd say the same thing. It's eating away at our property.
Yeah.
And so fixing something temporarily may cost us some money, but I've been giving you money for years that you haven't spent. So that's all. And I know the property owners, and that's a problem. I understand all that. But I want to get away from this Band-Aid deal and
No, I
temporary.
appreciate you saying
Okay,
that, 'cause
all
that's a perfect way to address it.
Yeah.
It's a broader issue than just
Yeah, and
the Band-Aid. It's
We want the whole area to be sellable, usable land, no question. So
I understand that.
Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
So I think what he's saying is we want possibly both things to happen. If we can have something quickly that will remedy it for the issues that we're having, but then down the road, go ahead and do the study, go ahead and get it fixed properly, because we don't want it to happen again. And it very well could, we just don't know. So if we do the study, that is the only way you can do the easement. Is that what you're saying?
No,
We would only need an easement from two people.
But we'd also need a minutes. If we're going in there, once we put it in there, who's responsible? That's a big issue when it comes to the municipal side of it, and that's where I have my biggest issue.
So just
Once we put it in there, who's responsible for it? Whose land is it on now? What 200?
Randy Hammond and Roger Woods.
And there's nothing that stops the two of them from replacing that 100 feet of tile. Agreed. There's absolutely nothing that stops them from replacing the busted tile on their property to fix this problem for everybody else
for now.
for now.
To your point, one
To your
of
point.
two solutions.
both of them to
Mhm.
take place in reality. But can you help me with the understanding of what the easement thing is? Is that where, if you do an easement where the village has the easement on our property, explain that. Does that then make the village responsible for it if we,
Not necessarily, but we have to have the legal recorded permission to be able to put it on your property. Which
but
is
so then
easy.
in the future, that doesn't help us other than taking care of it maybe once, is that what you're saying?
No, putting it in and maintaining it are different things.
So it doesn't help with maintaining it.
Correct. That was my next question. Who's in charge of maintaining it once the village puts it in? Because if the village puts it in and we're maintaining it, then I have other questions like, we need to make sure we have the easement on there, what are we tying it into? We need a study to be able to know where to put it, to make sure it's safer. So while it's two separate issues, as soon as the village gets involved in it, you want us to maintain it, it automatically brings this other issue in as top priority with putting it in there.
So how can we make it in the end, when we're totally done with all this, how can we make it so that it's the village's responsibility to maintain it? Does it have to be moved over by the road? I mean, is that where stormwater runs?
That's what the study is for.
That's,
That's
yeah,
why we need
and
to
that
study.
might be,
And that might be the
And
recommendation.
that might be, but
that
we
may
don't
be
know.
one of them, but we don't know.
But I'll
Right.
go back to those, if it's sitting on two owners, there's, and you want it, there's nothing that stops them from going out and digging it up tomorrow and cutting it out and putting a new one in. Because it's their tile on their property. And if they really want it fixed as bad as everybody else, like they've said they've had, or at least one of them, there's nothing that stops them from doing that. And we all know private sector works quicker than public sector. Nothing that
But
stops them from doing it.
If the private sector does that, the study still can go forward
Absolutely.
Yes,
and it's still, the whole thing can.
Yes.
almost at the same
Because-
time.
I mentioned it at the council meeting the last time and it wasn't service, so, but I talked because we got potential sanitary sewer to run down there too and piggybacking grants to run stormwater all the way down there because the residents down there have contributed to stormwater. And stormwater only goes down just a little past Brian's house, right? Or sanitary. goes down
No.
past that.
Yeah.
Sanitary has found that and stormwater stops up at the tree line.
Up the tree line, correct.
So,
Right.
running it down, but that's what the study is necessary for, so we can figure out what we need, where we need it, and to help us with the various grants.
So we can take the study off the table and recommend to council from service that we authorize. Have council authorize the study. Entertain a motion to forward the study up to council from service.
Foreman makes a motion, we recommend that council authorize the study of the whole road flooding issue.
Shelter seconds.
Fair say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Can I change that just a bit? Do we want to call it Boulder Road?
The V3 study for the drainage for whatever it was called last time, I guess.
Eastern Baltimore?
Yeah, no.
No,
Eastern Baltimore.
Eastern Baltimore, yeah.
Eastern Baltimore, because it is
No.
256, north of 256, south of Boulder Road.
Holder Road
It drains that entire
256.
area.
Holder Road 256.
We can call it
storage.
that. Let's call it that. I like that better. We have to look at a title that represents
The whole
the other stakeholders. So we're gonna call it State Route 256 and Boulder Road.
Stormwater.
I like that title. Thank you.
Is the other side of 256 part of Baltimore? That section?
Some of it.
Some of it is and some of it has
isn't.
annexation. It's not in, but has an annexation
Maybe
agreement.
you should just call it east side Baltimore.
Oh, Far East Side.
I
That's
like
what we
that.
were with junkyard.
I don't think that's too bad. I like that.
Present
Something that
text.
represents all the stakeholders. So I like the east side. But your motion.
Make a new motion.
Just
Modify it to motion that service recommended council that they authorize engineering study for the East Side Baltimore Stormwater Project.
East Side Stormwater Project.
Yeah.
No, you have Baltimore in there. We have too many stakeholders. I'm thinking
Send
ahead.
Baltimore out so we can include the other states.
I'm thinking
Got it.
ahead.
Okay.
You know, we need all the help that we can get to fix this problem that's been there forever. So who's second?
I did.
Thank you.
Oh,
So,
I've
yeah.
been doing it.
So it was,
It's deep in thought.
Yeah.
You want me to take a roll call or did you do a
I
voice?
did voice, unanimous voice.
It was past 3-0
Yeah.
with unanimous.
Unanimous voice. Rick, seconded it, passed it, went up to council now.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to go to the next, first item on new business, and this has become quite the issue. People who have parties in the park want to have inflatables of all sorts. I had Brian reach out to our insurance company who is, pardon me?
In the pool or the park?
Park.
Oh, okay.
Well, no, we had one that wanted something of the
I was
pool
gonna say,
too.
bounce houses are
Yeah.
inflatable too.
So Brian reached out to the insurance company and they are totally against them. Now, we did allow one church to go forward because they already made plans, but Jeff worked with them to get the right kind of insurance that they needed to make sure that the village was covered. So I'm not, I guess, maybe a motion would be good enough to say that we outlaw inflatables. Or do we need to put that in parks, or what do we need to do with that?
In the village,
I'm sorry, please.
just in the village.
Yeah, in the village.
Well, I mean, so saying park in the village, this way you can, anywhere the park, anywhere the,
Village
the
property.
village owns.
I was gonna say.
Village property.
Village property,
They
yeah.
use inflatables in my pool.
Well, yeah.
It's not banned the whole.
Well, I
village.
don't,
you
I don't,
My neighbors had an inflatable for a kid's 6th birthday party to run through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
well, I'm just saying. so you don't-
Village property.
Baltimore
I like
village
that.
I
property.
think for that would probably need an ordinance.
Okay.
That's how safe it is.
I would say, yeah. that should-
Ooh, I could have put it on safety. Well, we just had our safety meeting. So, okay, I'll move this to Jeff then and have Jeff create legislation to be put on the next safety committee meeting. Also in your packet, going to item number 2, was a copy of the current trash hauling contract, which is up at the end of the year. I had a visit with the representative from Rumpke. The last time that we upped the contract, we just did an extension. It didn't go out to bid. So we had worked with Pickerington before so that we could get a good price. The Pickerington service director at that time and myself, Bill Vance, we worked together to include Baltimore to get the same pricing that they are. This still is going to be the same pricing that they're getting. But if we do another extension, we could do an extension for 3 years and it'll be a 7% increase for each of those 3 years. So plus the fuel adjustment that we have now in this one. Otherwise, we can go out to bid and it may be more expensive. So I just need council's direction on this. It does expire in December, so I probably need to be have a decision on the direction you want me to move in.
You presented that as an either or, like we could go out to bid and then still tag on with Pickerington if that's our best option.
No, if we go out to bid, then we're going to be standalone.
No, I think what he's asking is can we put it out to bid and see what we get? And then if we don't get something comparable to
We can
this.
still get on Pickering,
We can
because
still
I've
get on
been told that only one trash hauler in central Ohio is positioned to bid on Pickerington's because they're so large. And so they effectively have created their own little monopoly. And then if we put it out to bid, we will likely get a lower price.
Because these companies are big enough to do us,
Okay.
but they're not big enough to do Pickerington. You have to have the capacity for the landfill, you have to have the capacity for the trucks, you have to have all these things. And at this point in time, only one company in Central Ohio can do the Pickerington contract.
And I'm okay with that. You tell me what direction you want to go into. and
I
I'll-
was going to ask a similar question of,
There's no harm in going to bid,
Can't
because if we
we just
don't get a lower
ask,
price, we
you know?
can just get on the Pickerington contract.
exactly,
Can I confirm that and then get with you? Sure. Let me talk to Jeff. If Jeff comes tonight, I'll ask him if we could do either. If we could do,
Because we have till the end of December to agree to go with
Yeah.
Pickerington.
Right.
I mean, I
Right.
guess, and you wouldn't
I think
necessarily,
I
you
missed
wouldn't
something.
necessarily,
We're talking about going with Pickerington. Is it Pickerington's contract with Rumpke or
Mhm.
Pickerington?
Yeah.
I guess
There was
it
Rumpke.
wouldn't be necessarily a bid, it would be a request for proposal. So it's not a full bid
so we can do
It would
an
be
RFQ
or an RFQ.
or an
yeah.
RFP. Okay. I could put one of those
So
together
that they could say-
based on the services that Rumpke is sharing with us now.
So that way, because if we bid, we might have to select something, but if it's just
That
give
is
us the
true.
qualifications,
To do an RFQ.
which is
That's
here's
just
what
a
we
quote.
have, tell us what, if we put this out, what you're going to charge us. And we can go from there.
I have, I've had a good report with Rumpke. I've had no complaints. When I do have a complaint, and if there are complaints, people need to tell me. That's the issue, you know, ever since I've been here for the last 5 years, I've had maybe 1 or 2 complaints, and there were people not paying their bill, and I got service just
I'll
like
pay
that.
my bill. They're
Yeah,
just not coming and getting it respectfully.
and if that's true, I need to know that, you know, because I can't, you know, when I had my meeting with them, I didn't have any complaints, because I track my complaints, you know, of whether it's water or streets or whatever it is.
My complaint, if you meet with them recently, there for a while, they were good about it, but when they do Market Street and Main Street, well, they tend to do those between 7:15 and 8:15 in the morning, which creates large school backups, especially on Main Street.
You
down
know,
there.
I thought we had put that in,
Yeah, well,
we had talked about that.
I purposefully did not dump off onto Johnson the other day, so I could see how long it would take me to get from Tremont
Mhm.
to the intersection here to get home. And it took me 20 minutes when they were picking up trash last Friday
Yeah, that's not good.
because of the backup.
And some people just don't like to complain.
But you can't fix something if you don't know it, Rick.
Exactly. But. I
And
know-
I'm very good at, you know, you
They-
ask me questions, I research them, I do it, you know, because I think it's important.
They might just not have realized that school started back up. as early
And
as they did.
that might be too.
Because they hadn't been doing it for a while. Last school year,
Mhm.
they picked it up later in the
Yeah,
morning.
they did, because we had that conversation, and Taylor and I
So
had
it
a
might have
conversation.
just been a reminder of school's in session now, so
Okay,
do that section later.
all right, I can go out to an RFQ, and I'll try to get that put together this week, and then get that sent out, so that we have some. The other thing is that we have an ordinance tonight. We had talked about the park users group in the rules committee, and then it was sent out to service. So before you, you have ordinance number 2022-28. And this is the ordinance to create this user group. On the front, it talks a little bit about it, and on the back are the very brief set of rules that we'll have for this. Did everybody see that? It's on the back.
Jeff just sent that today.
Uh-huh. And Brian forwarded.
Yeah, I forwarded it.
Okay.
This morning, as soon as I got it, I forwarded it.
Chuck can have my copy if he can get it.
It came from Brian Goodman.
Oh, yeah, it came from Brian, not Barb. So, well, basically, it's the, do you want to hand that to Chuck? Basically, it's what I talked about at Rules Committee. And this would be a group of the users for the parks and the pool that would meet when needed, that would help have a more cohesive look at what is needed at the parks as opposed to what we have now is disjointed. So Brian, did you not?
I'm double checking, but he was included. Did you
Yeah,
find
he's
it?
included.
Yeah.
He didn't realize, he's not clear at the bottom. It just came to that.
Oh, okay, all right. So this we have talked about in rules, and now I bring it to service. This does not have to be passed as an emergency. It can go through the 3 reading rules. So since you just got it today, if there's something you'd like to see changed on it, then all you have to do is just tell me, because as you know, as we go through the readings, we can always amend what we're voting on. So I need a sponsor.
Formal sponsor this ordinance.
We need a sponsor, relevant sponsors. 22-27, I believe it is,
Yeah, that's,
which is the B3 agreement that we just talked about.
For OPWC.
Oh,
No, I was gonna say that's a different one.
That's
That's
a
for the
different one.
Park Street or whatever. it is.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Granville Water Street OPWC project. I knew that. That will go for 3 readings also. And then I need a sponsor for that one.
Former sponsor.
If you have any questions, please let me
Can I
know.
clarify something on that? That's
Yes,
65,000, that's the total project, right? That's not just engineering.
Where are you at?
On the Granville Street project.
No, that's the engineering.
65,000 for the engineering.
Engineering and yes, that's what was submitted to OPWC. That I can give you an itemized statement of all of that, since this is a 3 read rule. I mean, a 3 reading of the ordinance. I can submit that project to you so you can look at it if you would like.
I would like that.
Okay. All right. So, sir. So the last thing I have is that I wanted to talk briefly, even if we don't get to safety, because safety is we really don't have a lot for safety. In fact, we have zip, right? So.
We did safety. Inflatables.
Oh, inflatables, yeah, okay, safety sign. So when I was having my conversation with the mayor, because sometimes I've been here, we just have routines, and I don't realize that I have new people that probably, when I talk about a budget review or how we put projects together, you're probably thinking, okay, what does that mean? How does she do that? So one of the things I did was tried to put together a presentation, and I'm sorry, it doesn't look very good on your screen. So I attached all of this docs separate. So when I talk through them, if you wanted to see them, you could. But the first document I wanted you to see is the project document. And this project document goes back, clear back to 2017. And this is all of the projects and grants that we have been able to get here at the village. The total amount of those projects came to $3,372,886. So the amount of grants that we've been able to write and get for roads and waters. Now, this isn't all of the money that I've got, but this is money that I think is important because it shows 2 things. Our local match part of that means what we budgeted was only 666,000 out of that 3.3 million. And we only took out a loan over all of those years since 2017 for $163,000. That's it. What we have got in 100%, what I call grant money or free money, is $2.5 million. So what we're doing works. And let me tell you how we came up with this process. When I first came here, I had a different fiscal officer. And I would sit in council meetings and I would listen to her say, oh, tonight we have to amend appropriations, and I was new and I would listen. I thought, okay. So after about 6 months of coming back, always amending appropriations, I asked her, what are we doing? And she goes, well, we have to have money to do this and money to do that, and et cetera. And I said, to me, when you have to come back to council and amend appropriations, it makes our residents we don't know what we're doing with our money. I mean, at the beginning of the year, Brian puts together a detailed revenues and expected revenues and incomes and expenses. So we right away have a good foundation there that we know what we have, and what's left is what we can do with projects. Since this time, we've been able to do all of this by doing the process we do now, and we just started that. So what happens is Brian's piece of that is that he puts together his report with all the overtures, the income, correct? Did I miss anything?
yeah, the union carryover.
And carryovers.
The carryover and the projected revenues that provides you with your total certified resources. which you can appropriate up to that number.
Okay,
Does that make sense? Okay.
are we there? So then the other thing he does is like, for instance, we talk about electricity. We talk a lot about wages. So then he takes that portion of it that he deals with, and he knows how much it is. And then he puts that into the budget underneath. These are what I need to appropriate to pay for my electric and my gas and my people and et cetera. So now, now what has he got? We got this budget with the income, and now we got the main expenses that we know we have. And now what's left is what we consider projects. So then what happens is that the team, which will start this on Wednesday, because we didn't know whether Tim was coming back tomorrow or not. But on Wednesday, each one of the owners of their area will bring together a wish list. And this wish list will be created. And if you look at the one page, that starts OPWC, North Greenville, those are the local matches. No, it says street fund on top of it. So go to the page that says the street fund. So this is the fund, as you can see, that Brian puts together. And it talks about medical, Medicare, life insurance, all of the above, dues and fees. So Brian already has a number that he knows based on the past years of what needs to go in there. Then Tim comes along with the next one that says streets project cost estimate. And as you can see, it's a detail of all the streets based on that 5-year plan, based on that report on the condition of the streets, and based on what water lines we're going to be wanting to do. So it's a marry of the projects between the streets and the water lines that helps the streets and water lines come up with their projects. And as you can see, they number these, they say whether it's an in project that we're going to do in-house, a project that we're going to do out of house. And then we put these numbers to the numbers that Brian has given us underneath those funds. Now, what happens? Well, what really happens is we have more projects than we have money for. That's usually a given. So then we have to sit down as a group and we go through and say, okay, well, if we do this water line this year, then we should follow up with the street, So that's how we come up with those projects. And usually I would say that by the next service meeting in September, I will have a list of projects for you all to look at. And what it is, again, it's each one of the department heads will sit down and they'll go through and fill out their estimated projects. So again, we added something new this year because Brian's been teaching us all that there's a thing where you have a fund, you have a fund line item. So this year we're going to be adding that fund line item to their project list because once a month we sit down with Brian, we get the appropriations out and we go through our projects and we go through our money. Brian, on his one report in finance, he has those percentages in that pie diagram that says streets at this. Well, that is something that we put together because that is what we talk about in staff. That's how we keep on track. And to Mr. Keller, who runs the finance, whose goal is to stay within the budget, that's how we do it. So we don't have those amend the appropriations. We have an intelligent way to look at how much money we anticipate coming in, and we monitor that on a monthly basis. So again, Brian's metrics are very important. I put them together so that you can look at the income coming in the lower right-hand corner. Do you remember it says this is where the income's coming from? And if that income is not coming in like it should, then Brian brings it up and says, I think that we need to back off here. And we've had to push a couple of our projects to 2023 just because of what's happened at the sewer plant. So basically, Brian does his part, then we put our part, we marry them together. I'll bring him to service in September, and then you'll be able to look at it. And then hopefully I can get it to you before that because it's very long, the report. And then once finance reviews it, it'll go to finance first, and then we'll put it to council and we'll pass our appropriations. We have been really lucky that we've got this process down, that we haven't had to go with temporary appropriations like most villages and cities do, and we can stay within our budget, which is what we do.
And I've already started that process. I've got the majority of the budget pretty much
Yeah.
worked on. for next year.
On page 3,
Yep.
I have it, you got the top cut off of it. I kind of know what year, you got years above it, but.
Oh, we were just using this year's.
The-
we were
Yeah,
just using this
Well,
year's as
I
an
don't have
example.
nothing on the top, page 3, when it said street fund 2011, is that all for that whole year?
No, 2011, that's the fund number.
yeah,
Okay.
2011 is a fun
That's
number.
what I thought, you got 4 columns, so.
Yeah.
What, the first column, what year?
That was probably
19.
2019.
Okay, it don't show on mine.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's
I
just
throw
showing.
out I always provide you with what the
19.
budgets were for
I
the
know,
last
I
3
didn't know
years,
what
so
you
you can
started
see where,
Started in 18.
19,
Right.
20, 21.
Right, so
then-
you'll have something to look at.
This is from UAN.
no, that's the spreadsheet.
No. This is something that we came up with because I think it's important. You take that look at it and you can see it.
And I have notes on the side. and you
Yeah.
see them.
Yeah, I see that.
And each one of those notes will have a project number assigned to it, so that when we sit down and go through the appropriations at the staff meeting, which by the way, you're always welcome to come and see how we operate. Then the guys know exactly, they have really, and I think Brian will agree with me, in the last 3 years, educated themselves very well in the ways of the budget. They understand it. And it even becomes a situation where they kind of tease each other. Oh, look at me, I'm at 45%. What are you at? You know, so that helps us stay within those goals of in the budget. Because we've got this organized effort going on, we've been able to replace trucks and vehicles that were definitely unsafe. We have did so many streets, as you can see by that. But have we did it all? No, but we have did more than we ever did. And all of the guys say the same thing. You know, since we started doing this process, we're getting more done for the residents than they had ever had when they had been here.
It was a little bit of a struggle to get them there when we changed this process.
But now
But
they're
now-
like cheerleaders and they do really well. They like to beat up on Brian sometimes, maybe a lot. And, they have really embraced this. And I think it's a good process for the village. And I just want to explain that a little bit because I know Deb and Darla are new. And when we go to finance in September finance, we should have it ready by then. We should have that ready. Then there'll be more questions, I know, and then we'll be able to answer them. Does that make sense, everyone?
And the budget, when it goes out, gets talked about, and then service gets streets and
Yeah.
water, wastewater, and INI, and stormwater, safety, we'll look at police, council, we'll look at general, and finance, we'll look at general fund. So,
What you brought up, one of the things that I wanted to say is that, as you know, the EPA is monitoring us on our INI. And when I first came here, the person that was here would say to me, now you've got to spend $30,000 a year because the EPA said we have to do that. Oh, okay, where is it at? Nobody could ever point out to me where the 30,000 was. So how can I say to the EPA, here's my documentation that we spent 30,000, you know, on INI? And now we have that documentation. I can ask Brian to run me a report, and 9 times out of 10, I get that report. If I don't, he gets me a report. So that's what makes it so good. And I think I counted one year. There were 21 amendments to the appropriations in 1 year. That's a lot. That wasn't when Brian was here. No, far from it. We're down about 3, maybe 5. We had the ARPs that we had to do that stuff that comes up that, you know, we didn't have funding for. But that's the way it was before. How do you know where you're at if you're always, you know, amending the appropriations? So I didn't want to bore you, but I wanted to make sure that you all understood how we were doing that because I think it's important, you
and
know.
when you get the projects, the guys will rank them. You know,
Yes.
What is this? But it's ultimately council's choice. So if council says, well, we would rather do this project this year than this project,
Mhm.
that's your prerogative. They put them together and give you all the details. Every project on there doesn't get funded every year because there's just too many. And so, you know, they give their input and then council discusses the rest, to figure out what.
EPA has us do the INI 5-year plan, so we have given EPA a plan like how we're gonna solve this problem over the next 5 years.
And how much money we're spending.
And so we're kind of locked into that by mandate.
Just on that one, but on others.
But the interesting thing is that, you know, everything that we do, whether it be, you know, stop overflows or anything like that can fall underneath that topic. And they're well pleased. Before, I would set meetings and they weren't well pleased because we couldn't document what we were doing, and now they are. So, and Brad's did a really good job, the whole team out there. Jason's a good addition to the team. He has been really good. So I see Rick looking at the sign. I'll stop playing clock. I'll stop talking.
All right, so.
I get the hint. Jeff's not
I'll get
here.
my phone out so you can't see your look.
Oh, the only other thing is you have the metrics. It was in my working folder, so Barb didn't get to grab it. I think what I wanted to point out, because I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask, I believe, service for this. If you notice, in July, we had 77 door tags, and if you remember, that means these are people who didn't have more than $100 due, and it's usually $200 or $300, and sometimes more on their utility bills. And what we do is staff goes out and they hang green tags on the door, and then the green bar in the back is how many. Sad part about it is that if we don't hang up these green tags, we don't get paid. And today, Brian and Missy worked exceptionally a long time on assessments that we have to do for unpaid bills. But we were at 77 door tags in July, but if you see in August, we were only at 47, and 36 of those have already paid as of today. So we're getting a good response. The only thing is, it takes labor to make the labels. It takes labor to hang the, so I'm probably gonna come back and ask the fee schedule be adjusted for like a $5 or $6 charge if you get a door hanger. And that's for the people that's only for the people who get the door hanger. Missy has been working with MuniLink to be able to attach that to the individual accounts. That's all I have.
Pretty much it for the ERC stuff.
Yes.
Sorry.
Real quickly, so the BDRC has been very, very busy this summer. We've had quite a few things going on, including children's theater. We also helped with a specific at the festival. So I'm coming to the table because we wanted to clarify about the winter market. And it is scheduled for December 3rd, which is a Saturday from 2 to 6 p.m. So we had brought the question to council to see if there's any way we could use Park Street, or would you prefer we use the grass area? What is your preference? Because we had thought the pavement, kind of like the same area that's used for the race, that particular area. But we know that this would require it being shut down for some hours. We also wanted to bring up parking. How would you like us to handle parking?
Basically, Park Street from.
If the market is from 2 to 6, I would say, and that's why we're coming to you, because this is the first time we will have done this in town. We learned that last year at Smith Park, we did not have adequate parking.
So you want to close from just in front of the park, so like Johnson and Summer's Choice?
Yes.
Plus you have all the parking on
Because then you can
Summer's
share
Choice.
Summer's Choice all the way down into that.
Yeah. There's 2 parking lots back there, plus Summer's Choice pool parking lot.
So here's the question. So when people come to park, can they park at the end of Summer's Choice in that grass area? Do we need to have, last year we had Joe Machado who organized that with the volunteer. There's a group of people, the volunteer deputies.
So where's the grass area?
I'm thinking the end of Summer's Choice, because where they parked for the festival. That's why.
It's all gravel. There isn't any.
Was it all, were they
grass.
all on the gravel for that particular event?
I don't know. Well, you know, on the right side or the south side, we don't own that property.
So, and that's why we want to make sure that we mark.
Back where the
off
ball
what-
fields are, we don't know that.
Okay, so the gravel area and the pool area. It's still gonna be.
What time would you have to set up? Two, what time is it? Because
With the number of vendors, we probably need to have people start coming in by around noon because they come in shifts so that we don't have everybody showing up in 1 hour to unpack and set up. So I'd say 12 to 12:30.
So shut down that section at 12 o'clock. So only the vendors can get in. and
Yeah,
then
noon
they
to
could have
7.
for an hour to clean up.
I'm thinking we might need better signage there too. Are we considering that one way all the way out to the Gordon Street exit? Because I went to the festival via Gordon Street and there wasn't a single sign telling me not to go through all of that backwards until I got to the exit. And it said one way, go the other way.
We can put up better
Well-
signage.
We could, but if it's closed, if Park Street's just closed at Summer's Choice, you could go in and out Summer's Choice. You would just be forced to go, south on Park towards Elmwood to get out.
The only thing about the parking area on Summer's Choice, because we parked on both sides, it's a bit angled and it's very narrow. That's why we did one way.
That's why everybody's yelling at me as I was coming.
Oh, you were going the wrong way? Oh, I see, okay. And they say, and he's a council person. We can get you better signage. I worked with Tim and the chief and I ordered some super duper plastic wipe off signs. So we can use those.
Okay, and I think I've already paid the deposit for the shelter house. I think that it was brought up that maybe if everything's cleaned up, taken care of, since we're a nonprofit, maybe we
Get it
part
out.
of that.
You do get it back.
You do. It's already in the rules.
I like that, okay. As long as I'll tell Steve he's got a lot of work to do.
Okay.
So we'll just need, well, since we're closing a public road, we'll probably do it like we do the festival. And just have service to a motion and then just have council will pass the ordinance, just like we do with the festival, closing the road from that area.
Park Road. From Summer Choice to Johnson.
So if we end up,
Square.
yes, because if we put all the vendors out in that paved area, and it's also gonna allow people to be able to walk to the market this year. Last year we had around 40 vendors.
Yeah, right.
40 vendors.
Wow, that's very
And if
nice.
we had people that wanted to come in, but we go and we measure, we make sure that we have ample space. So we'll know more once.
Don't paint on my street.
We won't paint.
So you won't be able to use your driveway for a couple hours.
I won't be there, December.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's
You
right.
probably
Okay, I'll
park
park
my
it.
truck.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, so chalk only 2 more areas.
Okay.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll take that back to council.
I guess. Anybody else got anything for service? To adjourn?
Form makes much to adjourn.
Yeah. Aye. Sure.
I'm gonna recommend with 5 minutes and the lack of any detail.
Aye.
See you,
Yes,
Chair.
I say yes.
All right.
Anybody else?
I knew we got there.
Yeah.
There is a,
We kind of had safety during service. with the
Yes,
vehicles
okay,
anyway.
that's fine.
did you stop us?
Inflatable bounce houses and stuff in the park or something.
I know we tried from the BMW.
Okay, Brian is still, you're still recording.
Those and trampolines.
And they said, don't do it, and so we didn't.
Oh, it's not that, Brian.
It's on slow mo.
I thought it was kind of slow today. And I was typing faster than the.
It's where you come down here. And just say you
Yeah.
Okay. Do I,
Yeah, just sure.
Just so you know, I don't go by there to spy, I just
Yes.
walk.
It's okay
there's
if you
something
do.
wrong.
I just make an effort to go look.
Just happens to be on my
We
walk
encourage
around.
it.
I've been
Don't worry about it.
okay,
Hit recording.
You need to update your computer. We're restarting.
Well, ABC Mike is coming tomorrow because I thought it was slow today. When I type faster than a Word doc, then you know it's slow. Something's
Our
wrong.
internet was really.
are we
slow,
live?
Oh, was it?
Very slow. Like.
I've been
So maybe
watching,
it's not us.
it's been flashing.
What's flashing?
The recording's been flashing, the live on YouTube's been flashing.
Well, yeah, we're still, wait, because it took a second the last time to say recording.
It says recording.
It'll come on in a second and say recording in progress, so we will go ahead and call this meeting to order at 7:32. Start with our first pledge. Our Father. who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Cosgray,
Present.
Foreman,
Present.
Keller,
Right.
McCreary,
Present.
Reedy,
Present.
and Shaw.
Present.
All right, all present. First item is the approval of the minutes from August 8th.
Yeah, I read the minutes today. I move that we approve the minutes that are printed and emailed out.
Foreman second.
Session minutes. Hearing none, roll call.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Keller,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Reedy.
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
Minutes will be approved as written. Moving on is our agenda, and I believe all three ordinances that we have are on the agenda, so I don't have any amendments.
Okay, I'll move that we approve the agenda as in front of us.
Foreman seconds.
Discussion, roll call.
Cosgray,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Keller,
Yes.
McCreary,
Yes.
Reedy,
Yes.
Schaffner.
Yes.
Visitors. Steve, got anything? No, all right. Moving on, my report, I'll be quick because school started and shows and it's been a hectic week, but the commissioners did have meeting upstairs. Appreciate those that came out. It's a lot of county people, but there were a couple council members, a couple residents there. And man, can they fly through an agenda as well. So had that. Terry met, I was unable to make it, but met with Destination Downtown Lancaster and some other people to help us with some downtown revitalization stuff. There'll be more to come on that. This was just kind of a kickoff meeting, but I couldn't get out of it in time, but just tell them it's a good meeting.
Steve Cottrell.
Steve was there as well, EDRC. And with that, I will turn it over to Terry.
I gave my report at service tonight, so if you have any questions, I can entertain them. If not, I don't have anything else further to report.
Brian?
Yes, Mayor, I don't know, on one of the pieces of legislation that was added, I know it hasn't gone through committee yet. It's the annual resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission. I just wanted to get on here so we can get it through the 3 readings between now and, this, first reading tonight and the next 2 meetings have it passed or read. But I need a sponsor.
I need a sponsor, so anything usually comes out of finance.
That's all I have. I just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you. Jeff is not here, but if he were, he would tell us there were 3 new pieces of legislation on here. Some of them carry emergency language, however, as previously indicated, do not necessarily have to bypass 3 readings, they just need to become effective upon their adoption. That will go to committee reports, finance.
Okay, Mayor, our next meeting is September the 12th, 6 o'clock.
And service?
Service met this evening. We had a discussion on the project for drainage, and a new piece of the new idea came out with the study for B3 on the east side drainage study. We're bringing that to council, and also the Grandview OPC PWC project for council consideration. Both were sponsored by Mr. Foreman. Our next meeting is September 26th.
Safety.
Yes, safety did not meet this evening, but we will be having our next meeting on September 26th, following service.
We did not have a meeting tonight, but our next meeting is September 12th after finance.
And park. Fire board.
I actually emailed the July minutes to everyone today. You should have those in your inbox. Our last meeting was August 18th, and our next meeting, that was last week, and our next meeting is September 15th.
Moving on, planning commission, we haven't met since our last council meeting. Our next meeting is in September. And because we've been getting verification on a couple of things, we anticipate actually having an agenda to talk about some development things.
And we also have a variance request from a resident on Clove Street.
Okay.
For accessory building. So we do have an agenda.
Tree commission.
We talked at length at our tree commission meeting about AEP and trimming of the trees and the growth tartan that they apply, and came out of it with no solution. I have 3 trees that are in village right away that need to come down really bad. I believe 2 of them are ashes. Kim is getting a estimate for those. I don't know what we're going to do with the trees that are on private property that people are saying that AEP whacked in, poured the poison on and killed them. We may need to come up with some sort of I would rather see an incentive or something as opposed to make someone cut it down if they didn't kill it. I don't know how else to say it. So that might be a good project to work on this winter. I put all of the code enforcement cases that are due to dead trees ordinance on hold at this time.
Tree commission. Nothing yet. For records commission. So we'll go to this.
Foreman makes a motion that we repeal ordinance 2021-24, the impervious surface ordinance. I think we've demonstrated on Yenser Street that we have no intention of enforcing it. I don't know how you can enforce it on other residences when we didn't enforce it there.
Okay,
Paving doesn't require a permit, so we can't really say no. And we just allow someone to pave above 90% of the property.
that was already paid. This was a replacement for the paving.
They expanded the paving.
They expanded the pavement in the rear, which was near a stormwater drain, which he has hooked into.
Right, but it's impervious surface addition. And
I believe that
I just
was
made a motion, we
incorrect.
repeal it. I'm just, if anybody else second it, we'll go from there.
Yeah, we can say, I guess the motion. Because typically you need an ordinance to repeal an ordinance. But if the pass it, then Jeff will just draft the ordinance.
And
This
maybe
already
no one will
passed.
agree with me. I don't know. I just,
This is the
I'll second it so
percentage.
we can discuss it.
Okay.
and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have allowed all that pavement to be put down because it's a terrible part of town and it's a huge improvement. I'm just saying that paved surfaces aren't necessarily our enemy. Weeds and growth has been a bigger problem than impervious surface.
But all of those impervious surfaces were there. He did expand it and back, but it also was expanded to go into a storm drain. And that's where the issue had arisen. And the reason why we had the percentage was that the runoff was going into it wouldn't go into other people's property. In this case, there were roadblocks to make sure that didn't happen.
Okay, but that isn't in the ordinance. It's a straight up impervious surface ordinance. It doesn't say if you have a storm drain or have another solution to your stormwater, you can have it. It just simply limits your impervious surface to the percentages in the ordinance.
So it might have been technically needing a variance. Which one, because I walk my dogs down that way and I know it's paved, but is it?
He paved a portion in the back of it in front of his garage
And,
also. And there's a storm drain there, but the one in front was.
Grass in the front as well. But then that's fine. And I'm not against
it's what-
having done it. I'm just saying that this is the kind of example why I was against the ordinance in the first place, not that we did, but we didn't enforce it there. I don't know how we're gonna enforce it elsewhere.
I'm sorry, what's the number on this one?
2021-24.
It's an ordinance that we had.
They were here though.
Yes, I was just
Yeah.
gonna say, the
Yeah.
one that we did up in, right, and it was about impervious surfaces. And in this case, when we did Yenser Street, the right of way was not paved. The right of way should have been paved because there was a big drop off there. So the part of paving that he did in front was already paved at one time, but he did put a strip of blacktop in the back because there was just gravel back there. So then it comes down to what's the definition of impervious surface? And do we consider gravel? And that's something that we're going to be talking about in planning and zoning under driveways.
Like you said, did he expand the front too?
No. How did you expand the front, Rick?
There was
What was
grass
there?
between the two properties. And I'm not against you paving.
No, wait a minute. Where was the grass, please?
Between the house to the south and the 3-unit apartment.
So between 224 and 2.
So between the houses, but not out front of the
No,
house.
there was no grass
Yes.
in front.
An expansion, I think, would probably require.
Well, but blacktop doesn't require a permit.
But it would have been a variance to this ordinance.
Right.
And that's probably my
And people have
bad.
been adding gravel as well all over town, and none of that requires a permit as well. That was my issue with the ordinance. These pouring concrete, putting down blacktop, and adding gravel does not require a permit, so I don't know how you could fairly enforce the ordinance.
For our argument here in discussion, I want to pull gravel out because I agree. I guess I disagree with the village stance. Gravel to me is not an impervious surface. Ninth grade science class teaches us that it's a semi-permeable surface.
I agree, but it was in the ordinance.
But yes, that one's in there.
Can we?
And do we really want gravel instead of blacktop or concrete? You're gonna reward the gravel driveways and punish the blacktop or concrete driveways.
We can kick this back to planning and zoning and talk about it as we talk about driveways.
We could do that, but because it brings up a point when we talked about the services. A lot of it was decks, buildings, rooftops.
Rooftops.
Which are all
Parking
permitted.
areas Are in there, and so you can control that with a permit,
Permit.
but putting in the driveway is not. So
Light bulb. Yeah.
yeah.
So maybe it's that section of it, because everything else is by permit and driveways and parking lots aren't.
But I don't want to have to permit to repair parking lot or
No.
driveway.
I don't think that's fair. I think I know.
Repealing it, but I don't want to repeal it.
No, we-
I don't like
No.
repealing it.
Yes.
I don't like the
Yeah.
idea of repealing it, but it highlights a very specific problem that.
Well,
is-
instead of
is an
repealing,
issue.
why don't we edit? I mean, isn't that what they are, is living documents? So because I do see the point, if everything else that we were concerned about, and never once did driveways come up, we talk more about rooftops and et cetera, maybe that's what we repeal, is that section in that ordinance. And I could draw what I think would be a satisfactory maybe suggestion for the next meeting. Would we put that to rules or service?
No, that would be service. And and if it's part of the zoning code, it needs to
Go to
planning and zoning too. But we can run it through both committees at the
Same
same
time.
time to coordinate that. However, there is a motion and a second on the floor. So let's see how this rolls, because depending on how the votes come down, it might be moved.
Well, I think if he agrees to put it in committee, to look into it and maybe.
Want to
change-
withdraw the motion to send it to committee, that works, but, or we can vote.
Be fun to take a vote, I guess.
It's your motion.
And you seconded it,
I just
so
so we discuss it.
let's go with a roll call and we'll go from there.
What was the exact wording of the motion?
To repeal ordinance 2021-24, which established.
That's what we're voting on.
Which established lot coverage percentages.
And it takes the whole thing out,
And we're still in discussion.
not an edit of what's there.
We're under discussion right now until.
I can make a motion to send it to committee after the vote. How's that?
Well, if your vote passes, there is nothing to send it.
Correct.
I would just like to say,
If it fails, we're gonna send it to committee.
Okay.
I don't like throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so I think it might be. Not really.
Well, that's.
It would take 4 votes to repeal it, so
Yeah.
I'm not hearing 4 votes, so let's just do it and then we'll take the next step.
Right. All right. Any more discussion? All right, roll call, again, for clarification, to repeal 2021-24. Roll call.
Cosgrave,
No.
Yes.
Keller,
No,
Schaffer.
No.
Reedy
Abstain.
and Crary.
No. All right, 4 no's, motion fails. However, based on discussion, we will refer 2021-24 to both the Service Committee and Planning and Zoning Commission for review of that issue that was brought up.
Perfect.
And so we'll put that on the next service and we'll put it on the
P&Z.
September P&Z meeting.
Got it.
All right. Any other motions? Looking for a motion to, from service to approve the VCB 3C.
Isn't that one of our ordinances?
No, I'm talking for the study.
For the
Oh,
study.
It's coming out of.
Yeah. Yeah, Foreman makes a motion that we authorize the village administrator to enter into a contract with V3 to do a study on stormwater issues in east.
The east side.
East
On the east
No,
side,
Baltimore.
Oh, not
on the
Baltimore.
east
East
side
side.
of town,
Yes.
Yes.
east of town.
I second.
All right, discussion on that one. Hearing none. Roll call.
Okay, Cosgrave,
Yes.
Foreman,
Yes.
Keller,
yes.
Crary,
Yes.
Reedy,
Yes.
Schaffer.
Yes.
All right, 6-0. Commission that study. Any other motions at this time?
Or Granville, PwC, Sarah.
That's an
That's
in the
ordinance.
ordinance, yeah, that's already on here.
Yep. All right, so then we will move on to ordinances, which is first readings. Resolution 2022-26, a resolution accepting the amounts of rates determined by the Fairfield County Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them. The county audit and declaration of emergency. Sponsor is Keller.
Okay, this is the first reading, and we will go to the second reading. I think it's the second reading.
All right. Ordinance 2022-27, an ordinance authorizing the village administrator to enter into an agreement with B3 companies for engineering services for the North Granville and Water Streets Vertical and Waterline Improvement Project and declarations. And then declaration of an emergency sponsor is one.
Yeah, this is an ordinance authorizing the administrator to enter into agreement with V3 to do the engineering on the Granville Street project. It does have emergency language, but we will allow it to go to 3 readings and it will just take effect immediately.
Perfect.
And then, so that'll come on for a second reading next meeting as well. Ordinance 2022-28, an ordinance to amend Title 8 of the Baltimore Codified Ordinances to include a new chapter 251, which shall be known as Recreation Facility Users Group. Sponsor is one.
Yeah, this is one we talked about at the last meeting. It's an ordinance to create a more representative group to manage the use of the parks. And again, well, this one doesn't have emergency, but this one will be able to go to 3 readings.
All right, so that one come on for second reading. We have no second readings tonight, no third readings tonight, no tabled ordinances tonight, no listed old business. Does anybody on council have any new business? Hearing none, there is no listed new business. Does anybody on council have any new business? Hearing none, our visitor is still here. See you guys.
No, sir.
All right. Any council have any last call? Anything for the good of the order? Our next meeting is September 12th at 7:30 p.m.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Shot seconds.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We will adjourn at 7:53.
So do you want to hear what I explained?
In 1
Do you want to
second.
hear?
Recording stop first.
And